We've talked about some of the minor characters of Hotline Miami and their tragic stories. Well, there were a couple of requests to cover other minor characters in the series, as well as one that I like myself that we're going to cover here. I hope you enjoy. In the 50 Blessings video, the story of the Colonel is recounted as a way to frame him as the leader of 50 Blessings, the patriotic organization that wants to destroy Russia and take over America. To briefly summarize, the Colonel was a commanding officer of the Ghost Wolves during the Hawaiian conflict of the Soviet-American War. Although very close to his soldiers, he was becoming disillusioned with his position in the military, the potential outcome of the war, and the bureaucracy of higher command. After members of the Ghost Wolves perish in their final mission, and retaliation is foregone in favor of peace after San Francisco is nuked by the Soviet Union, the Colonel's disillusionment turns to contempt, and he resolves to get America back on its feet by righting the wrongs in the government of America and getting revenge for all the Americans killed by the Soviet Union. He creates an organization named 50 Blessings, and together with a sort of brain trust, coerces its members into killing members of the Russian Mafia. Among those killed are corrupt politicians involved with the Russian Mafia that are also a part of the Russo-American coalition, and when this gets out, anti-Russian sentiment in America begins rising. The Colonel is eventually able to capitalize on this, and in 1991, now promoted to the rank of general, he kills the President of the US in a bloody takeover of the government, the culmination of the plan created 5 years ago after the bombing of San Francisco. During the takeover, the Russian president was killed as retaliation for the numerous American lives taken at Soviet hands, which eventually leads to nuclear war, and seemingly the eradication of both countries. But a former hideout of 50 Blessings was constructed in a manner similar to a nuclear bunker, implying this was a result 50 Blessings planned for. After all, with Russia out of the way, seemingly nothing could stop the Colonel from recreating America in his image. Now, this is just one way to see his actions, but you could also make the argument that he's just a psychopath that wants to see the world end, and the key segment for this thinking comes during the intro to Scene 16. At this point, the Ghost Wolves had completed their supposed last mission 5 days previously when they captured a Soviet stronghold on their own. They're now supposed to be heading home soon, but Command comes up with one more mission for them, taking an entire Soviet power plant entirely on their own. The Colonel is close to the Wolves, and the numerous suicide missions Command keeps putting them through eventually causes him to snap. One night, he mutilates the face of a Pink Panther, wears it upon his own, and storms into the Wolves' barracks, preaching to them that the Panther represents his true face, and the animalistic desires they all house inside of them. He continues, saying we love to cause violence and destruction, and we don't care why. It's just part of our nature. For this man, everything that's mattered before, duty, justice, honor, they don't matter anymore. All that matters is the indulgence of this primal desire of causing destruction. Whomever he was before this moment has been washed away, replaced with the animal within. When his men don't share the same enthusiasm, he backs down and reverts back to who he was before. But this moment dwells with him, as he feels he's had an epiphany on human nature. In the aftermath of the Russo-American War, when anti-Russian sentiments are rising amongst the populace of America, he comes up with a plan that will perfectly demonstrate what he was talking about that night in Hawaii. He sets out and does what we talked about before, creates 50 Blessings, telling his closest followers he aims to get America back on its feet. But in actuality, he aims to get people to indulge in that primal instinct, and does so by having his organization coerce its members into murdering Russian Mafia members, along the way revealing the corruption of the Russo-American coalition. This raises anti-Russian sentiments further, leading to the Colonel eventually seizing control of the government, not to do what he told his followers, but to be able to satisfy that violent desire he felt all those years ago in Hawaii. Now, since he has control of nuclear weapons, he can kill in the largest and most indiscriminate way possible, and thus, the bombs fall all across the world, all because one man wanted to watch it burn. Also, there's a Pink Panther mask in the first game named Brandon, so the Colonel's name could be Brandon. The technician biker interrogates in Chapter 16 of Hotline Miami is a very minor character, only meant to guide the players to finding the truth behind the calls. But, like other characters in the series, even his story is quite interesting when you dig a little bit deeper. His actions are actually incredibly important to the success of 50 Blessings' plan, as without his contributions, the entirety of Hotline Miami might never have taken place. The problem with his story is that there's a lot to be inferred about it based on what is shown in-game. So let's just start with the facts. When interrogated by Biker, he confirms he worked for 50 Blessings, as he explains that he helped set up their phone system at Phone Home, but that's where his affiliation ends. After that job was done, he went into hiding due to perceiving a political agenda they had, spending all his money to get this safe house. His interrogation also shows that he's not a resilient fighter like the other operatives of 50 Blessings, as he gives up this information for fear of being hurt. His behavior before Biker's interrogation, where he stands in his room with his hands on his head seemingly in a panic, further backs up the idea that he's more passive than the other masked maniacs. Inside the Chinese restaurant, Biker can find a rubber mask of some sort of octopus creature, which is called Charlie. Now, before Biker arrives at the restaurant, he questions a man wearing an Aubrey mask at a bar, and this man knows the location of the technician's hideout and knows that the technician has more information about the source of the calls. Now, based on these facts, we can make some inferences to fill the gaps in the technician's story. It's clear that in some way, Aubrey and the technician know each other, and it may have been Aubrey that recruited him to 50 Blessings' cause in the first place, similar to how he recruited Biker. Like nearly every other recruit, the technician received an animal mask, his being the octopus mask previously mentioned, also hinting at the name of the wearer. However, the technician, or Charlie, wasn't like the other recruits. He was more passive and reluctant to fight, so being used to assassinate Russian gangsters wouldn't be the best way to use him. Instead, 50 Blessings had a need to mask their anonymous phone calls, so that if they were ever traced, it wouldn't lead back to them. Luckily for them, Charlie has some skill in using computers. So when they developed a phone system that led any trace of their calls to appear to come from a Russian club, they chose to coerce Charlie into installing it into the phone company's system. In some way, Charlie successfully infiltrated Phone Home and installed the system. Afterwards, he discovered bits of the political agenda pursued by 50 Blessings, although it's unclear how. Perhaps he noticed the number the system made the call source from was a Russian club, and when numerous Russians began being killed by masked assailants, he connected the dots. Maybe he simply stumbled upon it, similar to how Jake found out. But either way, discovering he could be part of a conspiracy terrified him. We know that he ends up spending the rest of his money to get to the safe house in the Blue Dragon. But his flight to this safe house, as well as his new knowledge of the calls, is known by Aubrey. For Aubrey to know this information, it's most likely that after discovering the political agenda of 50 Blessings, Charlie turned to him and begged him for a way out, similar to what Biker does later on. And during his groveling, he let it slip that he knew something more about the calls. Aubrey, knowing there wasn't a way to just quit, suggests that Charlie flee and pointed him in the direction of the safe house of the Blue Dragon. Thus, when Biker came around demanding for a way out, Aubrey, maybe himself reconsidering his decision to be involved in 50 Blessings, pointed him to Charlie's hideout in the Blue Dragon, eventually leading him to the source of the calls. Now, after being interrogated by Biker, Charlie isn't seen again. But with his hideout known/ruined, he has to know that it's no longer safe, and before long, someone else will be coming for him. The stress of being hunted by this organization eventually causes him to snap, and he's next seen with another man having sacrificed a woman over ritualistic symbols in an effort to try and summon a demon to protect him. Yeah, no, that's not him. That is Wiley Wiggins, who along with Brandon Boyer was put in the game as an Easter egg. He confirms as much when you beat the level with the Phil mask equipped. But back to Charlie. With his hideout compromised, he likely tries to flee again. But the knowledge he has of 50 Blessings organization is too dangerous to leave unchecked, as it could trace everything back to them. Charlie is a loose end, and similar to Jake's murder or Richter's attempted assassination, it's likely his thread was tied up by the janitors. Throughout Hotline Miami, Jacket commits dozens of acts of gruesome violence. He bashes heads in with a bat, slices open throats, smashes heads into walls, and guns down dozens of people. And through it all, he never reacts to the gore. Except for one time. On April 3rd, after murdering several men in a subway station in his classic stoic manner, he's confronted by a homeless man that thinks he's encroaching on his territory. Jacket settles this qualm the same way he's dealt with the men in the subway, by killing the homeless man. Yet, afterwards, Jacket's actions sicken him, compelling him to throw up on the pavement. This is the only time we see Jacket react to the violence he causes. What is so different about this moment that causes this reaction from Jacket? It couldn't be an adrenaline rush brought about by the sensation of killing for the first time, as Jacket is familiar with killing after his experiences with the Ghost Wolves and the Russo-American War, and this murder takes place after several others. It's not the manner of the killings, as he's just killed several other men in the same or in a similar fashion, and we see him do much worse things later on that he doesn't react to. No, instead, it's likely the subject of the murder, as in the homeless man that's killed, that causes Jacket's reaction. Jacket's other victims are Russian men that are members of the Russian Mafia, and due to Russia bombing San Francisco and killing his closest friend Beard, Jacket hates Russians. That feeling extends to these men, and he feels they don't deserve to live since they are guilty as murderers themselves. But the hobo is different. He isn't a Russian gangster, but an innocent American. He hasn't done anything to wrong or impede Jacket in some way. He was just in the wrong place at the wrong time, and killing this innocent man made Jacket feel he's no different from the Russians, compelling him to throw up. But maybe there could be something more. In the PlayStation version of the games, next to the dumpster, lies a rubber animal mask. Could this mask, named Russell, have belonged to the homeless man? Could he have been recruited by 50 Blessings? If he was, maybe he joined 50 Blessings because he's a veteran, much like Jacket is. In fact, his orders and treatment of Jacket in the tutorial level are reminiscent of a drill sergeant. Maybe that's why Jacket felt so sick, because he killed a fellow brother in arms, someone that struggled like he has and done things he's done. Jacket feels like a traitor for killing an American soldier, and that could be what causes his nausea. Now, it's unlikely this last point could be true, as the mask is only present in the PlayStation version of the game, and it's more likely that someone scared of the calls they were getting threw it away. Even the innocent man idea sort of falls apart due to Jacket's attack on the police station, where he kills many men that haven't slighted him in any way, although Jacket could have thought these men needed to die in order to fulfill his revenge. But it's still fun to speculate on who this man was and why it caused Jacket to react that way. Alright, that's it for this one. I just want to give some credit to a couple commenters, Boxy Lemons and Psychotrip, about the alternate story of the Colonel. They really did the heavy lifting on all that story. Now, I know this video wasn't as good as all the other ones, but, the barrel is pretty much all scraped out, so there's nothing really to talk about, really. But I hope you enjoyed nonetheless. Thank you for watching, and see you later.